Welcome everybody to another Community Arts of the Bellevue's Live from the View. I don't even know what the date is. Yeah, the COVID has done this to me, so I don't even know what the date is. I think it's let's go with April 22nd, 2021. We have really an incredible show for all of you this evening. I'm glad you're all joining up and joining us. I see you coming into the rooms now, so this is really exciting to see. This is Live from the View. This is a program brought to you from the Community Arts of Bellevue. We just wrapped up our first year of programming for this community. We have had, we've done every show imaginable for our neighbors and our friends. We've done everything from cooking shows to bourbon shows to art shows, demonstrations. Last week, I hope you joined us for Dr. Mace Rothenberg, who just recently retired from Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, to talk about the importance of the vaccine. If you didn't, that video is up on our website in both Facebook with Live from the View and on our YouTube channel. Please take a moment to go see that show. It's very informative and it brings a lot of information. Community Arts of Bellevue is a 501c3 organization. We're created with our mission statement to promote, to create, to educate, and to uplift the arts in the West Nashville area and beyond. And we are constantly looking for new ways to bring new programming to you. Our new tagline is Live from the View is a show that was created for the relentlessly curious. So we hope that you will join us every Thursday night at 7 p.m. As we bring you more programs, such as next Thursday evening is probably going to be one of my favorites personally. It's going to be the Art of the Margarita. So this is in celebration of Cinco de Mayo. We're going to be coming to you live from Arriba, Mazitos, and Tito's. And every bartender in each of those restaurants is going to bring you their best margarita recipe and demonstration. So we're very excited about that. I think Lee Jones, who is with us tonight, I think she's going to be at Mazitos, and they've got the stingray, the dragonfly, I forgot, but she says they're incredible. So we're going to bring you some drinks for Cinco de Mayo next week. After that, on May the 13th, I hope you'll join us. We're going to have a really spring is in the air, spring is here, and everything is in bloom. So we're going to spend the evening with Terry White. And Terry he would probably hit me if I called him an institution, but Terry is definitely a Nashville tradition. He has been around for a long time and done some of the most beautiful artwork with flowers, florals, flora, plants that you've ever seen in your entire life. He also owns a company called the English Garden, and we're going to be at his home touring his hydrangea garden because he thinks he'll be in full bloom by then. So please join us. We may even do some arrangements. He has a show now on his YouTube channel that you're welcome to go see, and I invite you to go see. So we look for that. And then after that, David Hunsinger, who is a huge supporter of Community Arts of Bellevue, is going to do a show on the next Thursday evening about his journey in the music business in Nashville. And David has provided keyboards and other instruments and written for and produced and directed music all over the city for practically every name that you can imagine. So that will be an incredible show as well. So we've got a great lineup coming for you for the next a couple of months, and we're just going to keep on rolling on. There's no stop to what we're going to do. Without further ado, I am so excited about this. With us this evening is a friend of who I consider to be a friend of mine. I've followed him. I've studied him. I have really admired his work for many, many years. He's an incredible friend, neighbor, activist. He calls it as he sees it, and it's Mr. Omari Booker. So I'll tell you a little bit about Omari. Omari is an artist that in his senior year of high school at Montgomery Bell Academy, which I did not know about you. Also went to Belmont and did where he studied mathematics and other traditional curricula, which yep. But math is art, isn't it? I mean, it's just all over the place. And he decided to focus on studio art and went into graphic design. He later earned his Bachelor of Science in graphic design from TSU. And Omari's oil paintings is his predominant medium. But mixed media also included, and I see you've really evolved so much into that area, including watercolor, ink, and found objects, are essential building blocks to his work. So a quote from Omari is, "It takes a process-oriented approach to his art, embracing it as a therapeutic modality through which he is able to express his passion for the freedom and the independence that is the creative process that allows him to experience. His art is his personal journey, and his desire is that those viewing it will have personal experiences and catharsis. The philosophy that undergirds Omari's work is freedom through art. And he aspires to create work that communicates to his audience their unique, his unique, and their unique and intrinsic ability to be free." Welcome, Omari, to Live from the View.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is going to be a good conversation. So,
well, I've looked forward to this show ever since you and I talked, and I've actually looked forward to doing this show for over a year. I mean, when we first started putting together Live from the View, your name was at the top of the list. We've got to do Omari. We've got to get Omari on this show. It took us a while to do so, but you've been a busy person throughout this whole entire thing. So I'm going to start off with just a couple of questions. Let's talk about your starting out. You talk about being at Belmont and then graduated from TSU. Tell us a little bit about your journey as an artist. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I'd probably start with my high school art teacher. So when at MBA, Mr. Womack, Jim Womack, who was in the art department for many years, I'd guess in that 30 to 40 range. He may not love me putting that out there, but he was there for a long time, and that was kind of my introduction to art as a in a more serious way. I'd always appreciated taking a look at artwork, going to museums. I was definitely the kid that would stare at the artwork for a long time and try to figure out how the magic was made. But until that class, which I actually took because you had to take some art to graduate. So my senior year, I just went with visual. I didn't like my chances at theater. I didn't think I quite had the personality to make anybody believe my acting. So I just went with that, and that was really the start.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you grow up in an artistic family household?
Not specifically, but I think that my mom definitely had an artistic bent. I think my parents were both of the generation where art wasn't, even though it was appreciated, it wasn't quite looked at as something to do for a living. But I'm really grateful that they kind of broke that mold with me when I that's kind of where the Just Keep Painting, the title of this show, came from. That was sort of my mom's mantra to me after I decided that this is what I wanted to do. So yeah, even though so I think they were definitely really supportive. There was art around the house, no big major art collection or anything, but framed prints and that kind of stuff, and I always had images to take a look at growing up.
Great. Were there any particular artists as you were coming, early years that really inspired you and said, I need to know more about this?
Yeah, it was, there were probably two. And one of the, the greats, Van Gogh, I just always liked looking at his artwork. I thought it was just something about that thick, chunky, and how it sort of changed depending on how close you looked at it. I always thought it was really interesting to see artwork that from 2 feet away, it has one quality, and then from 10 feet away, it has a whole different quality, and then from 20 feet away. So that's something I always try to pay attention to when I'm making work, is to, intentionally stop and view it from, a viewing distance and not just a painting distance. And I think he was a big influence in that. James Thurkill was another
Oh my
influence.
God.
Yeah, and someone that I kind of knew. I didn't know him like super well, like personally, but my parents knew him, and he was just a little bit more of a tangible example of someone who was actually making art for a career. And he kind of had an athletic background similar to myself, and was just really relatable as someone that made it seem like something that wasn't just so far out there to do. So yeah, so I'm still grateful, still in a relationship with him, and then all the mentors in Nashville that kind of paved that way. So yeah, those are two specifically, at least in my earlier days.
Yeah, James is one of those that's also been in my heart for many years. Many years ago, I was with the Oasis Center, and we used to do the Artists for the Oasis show. It was a magnificent art show, premier art show in Nashville every year. And James was a part of that. And I got to know him through that experience. And just, wow, he's such a powerhouse of an artist.
Mm-hmm.
I got to watch him in action a couple of times, and
Yeah,
so cool to see him really he just knows how to lay it down.
yeah, for sure.
And put his heart and soul into what he does. I mean, when he gets done, there's a vibrancy to his paintings. Yep.
Yeah,
He's
absolutely.
another great one. So any other really great artists that kind of sing to your soul?
Yeah, I'd say Sam Dunson. He's at Tennessee State University.
I wrote Sam's name down. We were going to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. He's probably, it's funny to have someone who's like directly in your community that you really feel like is one of the best living artists. But I mean, I'll put him up there with anybody. Take the Kerry James Marshalls and the real elite, whatever. I put him in that category. I think he's yeah. I look at a lot of artwork, and every time I look at his, I'm like, man, that's like the thing that keeps me, that I'm kind of chasing. So it's inspiring, and it's also it kind of brings back that thing that made me love artwork as a kid, which is like, it seems like magic. I look at it and I'm like, I don't know how that person did that. And so yeah, he wakes that up really consistently for me, and also just good friend and mentor. So
yeah. He knows how to drive a viewpoint. I mean, he just creates it and drives it, and you don't walk away from his paintings and not ever see it. It's like once you've seen a painting, it's there. It's forever. Yeah. It's emblazoned in your soul. He's just
for sure.
And when he paints his family and stuff, it's just amazing. I got to meet a couple of years ago. They unveiled some of his work at the courthouse when the Metro Art Commission was doing some paintings and doing some new public installations, and I got to meet his mom and dad at the show, and it's like, wow, that's cool. They were
awesome.
Such nice people. So there's another one that came from Artists of the Oasis. That's how I met Samuel many years ago.
Yeah.
A lot of great artists in this city I got to meet through that.
For sure.
So someone just mentioned that they love the painting that's over your head.
Directly over my head.
I think so.
Yeah. I well, I guess I should start with, it's still available. Thurkill wouldn't like it if I didn't let him know that it's still for sale. No, but that is man, it was a few years ago. I'm trying to remember even what the title was, but I kind of was. I'll grab it, that way we can might as well chat about it. Hopefully the title's on the back. Oh yes, Be All You Can Be. So that was kind of the
Oh, wow. There
Okay,
it is.
so
Got it.
so yeah,
That,
the idea behind that was kind of looking at it was almost like a timeline in these teeth. And so I kind of went from almost like African American history in um, all in one sort of smile with the American flag as the backdrop. But I started with and I usually would allow what much more interpretation, but I think for this purpose I might just give away what it's about. Does that make sense?
yeah.
So I started with kind of the purple as the regal kind of African descent, and a very thin bit of gold. That's kind of also talking about that history. And then the teeth, there's a really white tooth, and I kind of went with a pretty strong white tooth because that was a way of identifying strong slaves. So when you were looking for the health and basically longevity of an enslaved person for an investment, the teeth were a big thing that were looked at in that slave trade. And for the watermelon, that was another piece of that kind of story, which always the irony of kind of the watermelon seeds fitting lazy Sambo, even though it's the hardest working group of people in the country at that time. The then the black and gold. Um, I think this was kind of I was looking at the era going out of kind of coming out of slavery and into um, really into the civil rights movement because there was that large gap of time between, of course, 1865 and 1940, 50, 60, where there was Reconstruction and Jim Crow and kind of all of the things that were happening leading up to the point um, where the civil rights movement there was a pride in being black. Like there was kind of a black power, black pride. There was something that was happening that the value of black people was at least being seen by each other, if not by the entire community, by each other. The gold, I think, and this was a while back, but I believe the gold was kind of looking back to that original, kind of some of the original wealth, and even if it wasn't financial, the community wealth that I think was built out of that era. And I think we kind of saw the coming out of the 50s and 60s, the 70s, 80s, 90s was kind of one of those big um, gaps of, I guess, those big stretches of progress. And of course, as we know, it wasn't that's not a black and white thing, but there was a movement forward. Kind of when we're looking at everything that's happening right now, and I discuss with people the I think it can be popular to say that nothing's changed, and that we're in the same place we were. And I got to remind people that there are Klan rallies on my dad's street in Williamson County, Franklin, Tennessee, 20 minutes from where I live. So things aren't there, but they've changed. Things aren't where we haven't arrived, but I think we'd be foolish to pretend like things are exactly as they were, you know, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So anyway, that is kind of looking at the mass incarceration. There's the other tooth that does have that kind of cell, and I think that was one of the things that really did set a lot of people back. That as a lot of the progress of the 60s and 70s was being made, crack epidemic in the 80s, mandatory minimum sentencing, all the stuff that kind of set. And then this is a little bit more into interpretation. I think that's where we don't really know. I think there's just like any piece of artwork, it's gonna kind of ask some questions, and I don't think we really know what the next step is. I mean, I think something that is that is happening is that there are more people that are aware of the situation in this country than there have been. But yeah, that's be all you can be. That's kind of what that's all about. Yeah.
That's truly amazing. Yeah, gosh, hasn't the last several number of years been an interesting journey for everyone? And even this week has been an interesting
Yeah.
journey in itself. So,
Sure.
in a good way.
Yeah.
And I hope that this momentum continues moving forward. We got a lot of work to do.
For sure.
Yeah. Um, what an amazing painting. What a great way to start this conversation off with a bang. I
You know
love
what?
it. I love it. But that's what your art speaks to. That's why I love it so much, is that it tells such incredibly important stories, just such as that.
Well, I'm glad that's
And
always always the goal. I think is to make things that are both, captivating, interesting to look at, and also hopefully share something that a lot of the times it's just telling a story that I heard and or experienced and I didn't know before. So it felt like something that was worth sharing. So yeah, there's some more of
yeah,
those behind it that are just like that. But I don't know. I mean, we're gonna spend the whole show talking about stuff we didn't plan on talking about if I keep on showing the paintings that are behind
but
me.
we can do it's our show. We can do anything we want to do.
Nice.
So, Beth Lapena asks, can you talk about the window panes that are in your work?
Oh, for sure, definitely. They came out of some North Nashville housing, and just as I had a friend who was in construction, and as buildings were demolished, he would just have random materials left over, windows, doors, burglar bars. We have a few pieces in the slide with the burglar bars on them. That's the piece with the three little boys. But yeah, I just kind of started collecting um, sort of the remnants of North Nashville as it was developed and gentrified, and as it shifted. I think it's a pretty unique neighborhood. I think because of how much history was already there, as it started changing, there was a lot of awareness where, like, I lived on 12th South, before it, was bachelorettes and, there are no pedal taverns on 12th South yet, but I got a feeling they're coming. but yeah, there seems like there were certain parts of town that we sort of looked up and they were just different. It's like East Nashville maybe was a little bit more gradual, but I think North Nashville is pretty unique because of Fisk and TSU and Meharry and the Jubilee Singers and all the history that's already there. That
Yeah.
as it started to shift, the community was very like aware, very a lot earlier because often everything changes and then it's just sort of looking back and saying, well, what happened? And so with with people that are, I think with the community that already is invested and kind of cares about what happens to it, I kind of wanted to document some of that shift and it's been interesting. I mean, I think it's been pretty, pretty cool to see people kind of work together to figure out what it's going to look like moving forward. So
Sure. I know that there was, again, Tom is just craziness to me. I completely lost it. Is that I think prior to the COVID, maybe 2019, the Frist Art Museum, now I think it was still Frist Center then, did the murals down the main entrance way into the galleries, and you did a mural about I think it was a friend's home or your family friend's home on Jefferson.
Yeah.
Could you speak a little bit about that mural?
Yeah, for sure. It her name is Eloise Freeman, so Miss Freeman, but the home has been in their family for 100 years, and I think it's one of the oldest same owners, homes with the same owner, same family owned homes on Jefferson. But yeah, I met her through her daughter, and she kind of told me a little bit of the story, and then I went and met Mrs. Freeman, and it was just really just amazed by everything that she had been through in that space. She went to Fisk. She was actually on campus when when Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Wow.
And so the riots that happened on Jefferson Street, she was there for that. She was there when 40 was built. I mean, when I-40 kind of came through Jefferson Street, they actually lost a significant part of the front half of their yard. So they kind of lost some of their property to that. So yeah, so she kind of saw all of the things, all of that initial really major shift to, from when there was movie theaters and nightclubs and Jimi Hendrix and Aretha Franklin and all the people that performed on Jefferson Street were all kind of
Yeah.
a part of what was going on pre 40 kind of being built through that neighborhood, and then I think she saw the effects of after, and yeah, and that's another thing that's kind of been interesting to see how that's unfolded, and in that history of 40, I and don't quote me on this documentation, but I'm pretty sure the other option was Bellevue. I think the other like route was kind of that near where 70 is. So Belmead Bellevue was the other option for where it would go. Hopefully a historian will get in there and figure out all of that history. But I believe that's kind of what I've gathered. So yeah, check that research, because that's another interesting that's an interesting dynamic. So yeah.
Of course, I'm not a historian by any stretch of the imagination, but I know that it's been interesting to me that so much of that history seems to have, I don't want to say get swept under the rug, but I would say that it got lost for a while. A lot of people didn't know about the history of I-40 and how it split through the middle of the African American community with no entrance ramps or exit ramps, and how this all of that, how it unfolded. I didn't know this for years.
Yeah.
And only probably until the last 7-8 years that I even know about it at all, that I started hearing about this. I was like, really? So I think that reawakening that people are re-educating of how what happened to Jefferson Street, how thriving it really truly was, and then it got squelched, and now it's really trying to reemerge again. So that's just amazing history that should never be lost. And the people don't realize or know the musical talent that came through that area was above and beyond. Motown. This was like the premier place for all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think the new National African American Museum of Music starts to capture that and reteach it again, which I'm really anxious to get down there and go see it myself. So I can't wait to learn more about all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Nashville, unique. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I think that it is such a, it's such a fine line on what gets left out historically. And I mean, I would I would hold any history department accountable. It's like, did NBA intentionally not teach certain things about history? I can't say that for a fact, but I know that Montgomery Bell was a slave owner, but I didn't know that when I was in high school. And I think every Black kid that was in high school should have known that. Just not because you can do anything necessarily about that now. It's just, it's the stuff that makes this thing happen. Like generational wealth is a real thing. There's a reason why there were certain people set up in one way in 1920, and then there were others set up in a different way. So yeah, I think that you can never really call whether someone's intentionally leaving stuff out, but you can say that sometimes not telling the whole story is more comfortable. And when you don't tell the whole story and you get comfortable, then 2020 happens, and people just get killed for nothing,
Yeah.
because the whole story hadn't been told for long enough that we don't know that it's real until it gets real. And so yeah.
That's such a great way of expressing it. Thank you for saying that.
For sure.
Yeah.
I always feel like I can put my own people on blast. It's like, because I went to NBA, I feel comfortable calling them out. I wouldn't call out, I don't call out Father Ryan. People would just say that I'm just, talking shit. But NBA, hey, I figure if I went there, I can hold their feet to the fire.
That's kind of true. That's kind of true. You kind of have a little bit of a license to do that.
There you go.
But you just taught me something that I didn't know about NBA. I did not know that fact at all. Never have known that. So, see, folks, you come here and you learn things. I keep telling you that. That's what we're here. We're about educating on the community arts of Bellevue. So, I'm going to shift our conversation just a little bit. Although you and I think we could stay in this conversation for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said about it. So, we'll just kind of put a little stake in the ground and come back to it in a future presentation or future show program. So I'd like to do now, I know we've got some slides for you that you've sent to me today of some pieces of your artwork that I'd like to kind of walk through and discuss and talk about.
Definitely.
If that's good with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Lee, you want to bring up the first one? There we go.
Yeah, so
there you go.
Yeah, this lately I've been working on fabric quite a bit, and so I just take these pieces of fabric and stretch them on stretcher bars, and that's one of the pieces that I painted into, and I've kind of done it a few different ways where the fabric is more the background. This time I kind of painted over a lot of the background, so the fabric is more the little boy's clothes, but yeah, this is just kind of finding images that speak to me. I took this photo in Lemert Park. It's right off of Crenshaw Boulevard in LA. So it kind of feels like the Jefferson Street of LA. It's historically a Black neighborhood, very art focused and music focused, and yeah, just a really cool kind of area to spend some time. So I met the two of them and snapped that shot, and then a while later I kind of created that painting. So
lovely. Yeah. And for the viewer, the green is not part of the painting. It's just some background for the slides. So I didn't want to, that's not the fabric that he painted on. So I just wanted to point that out to you.
Yeah, the fabric is kind of the boy's clothes, which I'm pointing as if you can see.
Oh, is it right?
but yeah, the little boy on the back, those clothes are actually the fabric that's being painted, and so everything else, the blue sky and all that is painting, but it's painting over to kind of black out that fabric.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So yeah, so the whole canvas starts off looking like a little boy's clothes.
That's fantastic. This one really struck me.
Yeah, the Fire Next Time. If I have a little video where it shows me kind of burning this piece, but James Baldwin, one of my favorite books of his is called The Fire Next Time. And just the ending is really, he kind of ends the book by saying, God gave Noah the rainbow sign, no more water, fire next time. And it's kind of like this, almost like this warning to humanity that we're kind of, we sort of we got to treat each other better. I think that's really what he was kind of getting at. It's like the world ended once, at least biblically, wherever you stand on that is, it's your business. but anyway, so I took this piece and pasted the scripture on a panel and then burned, kind of set it on fire. But I poured the polyurethane in a circle around his face so the face would stay intact. So yeah, I've got the video of that being burned. If yeah, feel free, reach out on, it's on my Facebook and Instagram somewhere back in thread, but if you send me a message, I'll send it directly to you, and then you can kind of see the creating of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, Wendy, that.
Okay, we got to talk about this one, Omari.
Yeah. Do I get to let you give me interpretation first on one of them? Let's do it. Let me hear what you got first.
That personally petrifies me. Think about it.
I don't want you petrified. We don't want to petrify hosts. Well, so this was, there's a Wendy's on 28th and Jefferson that I feel like I've been going to my whole life. I grew up going to Hadley Park every summer, and kind of the treat was you could go down to Wendy's and get your get lunch and not have the the box lunches that were provided by the community center or whatever. So kind of looking at food and predominantly Black neighborhoods, a lot of fast food. I mean, I'm sure some or most of you are familiar with the term food deserts, and so that's kind of what Jefferson ended up being, really. I mean, there was a Wendy's, a Captain D's, a Popeyes. There just wasn't many healthy food options, and so that red circle is kind of looking at redlining and federal housing laws that kind of created, food deserts, education deserts, mass incarceration. They kind of created these areas of less opportunity, and a lot of it came from property values and who was allowed to live in certain neighborhoods. So yeah, that's kind of was the play on Wendy, just kind of making Wendy a little Black girl on Jefferson. So
and I've noticed also that you incorporated the barbed wire on this one as well.
I did, yeah, and there's a number of that's been an ongoing series where the red barbed wire is speaking to redlining. So it's kind of a nod to those to that division. And I usually use the flesh tones of a darker person kind of inside the red and a lighter kind of white flesh tone on the outside of the barbed wire, because that's how it was separated. In those initial laws, the language was Negroes and aliens, which basically Black people and immigrants could be were in redlined areas. Then there were yellow and blue and green. The green line being business people, property owned, kind of like white landowners. White male was also in the initial blocking out of property. But with those laws being 40s, 50s, it was interesting to see how they sort of grandfathered in to 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and how that sort of played into gentrification was, once the property value was so low in these predominantly Black areas, they could be bought, kind of bought low, sold high, and that's what that's what you see all over the country.
Yeah, every day. And then the red line, you also got that it bleeds over into the politics of everything, and yeah,
for sure.
So,
and that's another one. Double Dutch, also that same series. Also looking at redlining, just that kind of it's razor wire that the kids are jumping rope with, and it just is sort of speaks to the same thing, where you can kind of be pretty severely cut by laws, practices, housing, neighborhoods. It's like as innocent as kids are playing double Dutch, there's also a lot of really damaging things that can be sort of right there with them. So yeah.
Also, to the viewer, I'm not sure you can tell this is that Omari's not painting that wire into the paintings. It's the actual razor wire itself that he's incorporating into these pieces. So that's not just him painting the red lines. That's actual razor wire in the painting.
Yeah, I'll get once you can kind of so you can sort of see that it.
Bring the camera
Yeah, it's actually
there we go.
yeah. So you see the side, you can kind of
Yeah.
and it's it's actual barbed wire, razor wire fencing. So it's yeah, extremely sharp. And yeah, I've nicked myself a couple of times. Once pretty good. I had one pretty good cut, but I also thought it was. I mean, actually, my mom at one point asked me if I could just paint the razor wire and stop using this real razor wire, and I just really feel like it's important to have the effect of what the practices did. It was that menacing of a law. So I kind of wanted the materials that I'm working with to match the yeah to match the circumstances.
Sure. The story you're trying to tell.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's another one.
Rebel. And I'm gonna hold on just one sec. I'm just gonna mute. I might let you chat about Rebel real quick. This is really putting you on the spot. Hold on a second.
I think this one's very interesting with the pink rebel flag in the background. The gentleman looks quite distinguished, but also looks like he's really studying in on something and worried about something. I can see that on his face, the expression. Quite the piece. Lee, what's the other one? There we go. Omari's back.
Yeah. And then we can kind of move through Rebel pretty quickly because it's all talking about the same thing. The one interesting thing about Rebel was that the man in that in that piece was actually a soldier who fought with it was kind of pre-Confederate Army. He actually was fighting against Native American troops that had killed some white American. I don't think they killed the soldiers. I think they were stealing horses and were under attack. But he did help fend off the attack and killed a few of the Native American, the indigenous people that were kind of attacking the soldiers that he was. I don't even know if you could say fighting with at that point, because I believe he was still an enslaved person. But he got a Medal of Honor because of his service. So it was just a really interesting dynamic. Kind of fighting for the oppressor, which is also a real long history of just Black soldiers in the United States have kind of done that for a long time, but also fighting against indigenous people who were a little bit more aligned with early African Americans anyway. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Why don't we swing through all three of these? If they're all still in order, it's a eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and we can just kind of take a look at all of these. Oh, that's okay. They're not in order, but we'll just remember that little guy, and the next time as we get to those pieces, we'll chat about those as a whole. Nice. Yeah, these are all from Need a Hug. I did a show in 2020 called Need a Hug because I felt like everybody kind of needed a hug by the end of 2020 for a lot of reasons. And that's what all these pieces are, just friends sent me hug pictures of either them hugging or their kids hugging, their favorite hug picture. And I turned those into some artwork. So yeah, that's what those are about.
And I think that was the last one we had.
Oh, nice. Nice. Very good.
Could look at those forever. They're amazing.
Well, I'm grateful. Glad to be able to share them. For sure.
So what do you got cooking now? What's coming up for you?
Well, I'm headed out west on Sunday, so my plan is to drive to LA and and kind of open up a workspace out there. So I'm still going to be living in Nashville, still living in Bellevue, but I'll go out there and work for some periods of time. And so that's one thing. And as far as shows, I've got a show in the fall at Channel to Channel Gallery in Wedgwood, Houston, and a show with Henry Jones at the Parthenon also in the fall. So the show at the Parthenon is going to be a lot of large scale work, and I've got some big 8x. There's some in the corner that you can kind of see a little bit, but there'll be some big 8x8 foot and 4x5 feet, pretty large scale pieces that I'm kind of getting together for that. But outside of that, just kind of staying in here, pecking away at it, making work.
So is your LA, is that the artist in residence that you're going to be doing?
Well, it was interesting, and I don't know if there are any artists out there. This is a thing to listen to, but I applied for residency out there and I didn't get it, but I'd been planning to go anyway. So I found a studio that was pretty affordable and rented it, and I'm gonna kind of make it kind of build your own residency. So yeah, that's definitely something that as an artist, there's just numerous doors that don't quite some open and some closed, but a lot closed. And so as often as you can kind of find ways to figure out if you kind of have a vision to do something, try to figure out how to do it as much as you can within whatever means or time frame that you have, because it definitely and that's galleries, residencies, museums, all the way up the ladder of it. There's the timeline for when your things are appreciated versus when you're making impactful work doesn't always align. So sometimes you got to kind of kick in the door. So that's my hope and plan out there.
Have you been out to LA before?
I have, and I've got some family out there. And that's part of why I chose that place. For one, it's somewhere that I like to visit a lot and just kind of like the energy of it. But I do have family and friends, and so a little bit of it's a place that I was going naturally and have for a long time. That's where my mom's brother and my cousins, aunt and uncle are out there. So yeah.
I want to go. Let's just go. I'll just pack up and we'll head out, man.
Let's do it. Everything's on Zoom now anyway.
Everything's what?
I said everything is on Zoom now anyway.
That's kind of the truth, isn't it? I've been on Zoom since 8 o'clock, since 7:45 this morning. So yeah, makes for a long day. But I'm just thankful that I can still connect and talk to people like this.
Absolutely, and I'm grateful for the space. Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we were starting to wrap up this evening, is there anything else you'd like to share with the viewers?
Well, can they ask questions, or is there?
Absolutely. If anyone's got anything, I think people were kind of asking questions as we went along. But if anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat.
I would say any questions, that'd be great. But yeah, I think we kind of touched on a number of different topics.
So Lee wants to know, where can we purchase your art?
Well, there's whenever I have a show, that's one place, but also studio. Send me a message. You can do a studio visit anytime, and there's one or two or 100 of pieces to choose from out here. It's not no shortage of artwork. So
anything
that's one good way to do it. Online also, but I typically just do prints online. I don't usually do the originals online. So that would I would start with a studio visit.
Sure. You got anything new you'd like to show us?
Well, I am kind of interested in these drawers. And I would say my website, you can send me a message that way. So omaribooker.com. or Omari Booker at Instagram or Facebook, and just send me a message on those. So I've been kind of creating these pieces inside of drawers that were in my parents' room when I was growing up. So they went from my parents' room to my sister's room, and they ended up with me. And so now I'm kind of creating pieces inside them. And this is John Trudeau. He's an indigenous civil rights leader, 60s, 70s in that era. Though he lived longer than that. He was alive until I think the maybe early 2000s. But he had a really interesting story, challenging life. In a protest, he burned an American flag on the steps of Congress, and that night his home was burned. And
Wow.
so he lost his wife and 3 children and his mother-in-law in the fire. He was still, I think, out of town at the protest, so he did not pass. But I'm kind of doing him in one drawer, and then I'm doing the home on fire in the other drawer.
Oh,
And I put his mother-in-law on one side and his wife on the other side with the flowers, kind of to represent it was 3 children and she was pregnant, so it was 3 and 1 on the way. But and yeah, I just kind of really decided to create these pieces because I heard his story and I had no idea that had ever happened. And I mean, I think everyone has the ability to kind of get lost in their own story, whatever their own kind of story of struggle or whatever it might be, and not really realize how many people have been struggling in their own right. But I just thought that was just something that needed to be shared. So similar to that James Baldwin piece, I'm gonna actually burn these when before they're displayed, and then kind of tell that story of his work and his family's work before they were before they passed also.
that's great. So people are also asking how to contact, the best way to contact you. Is that through the omaribooker.com, or do you want me to post your email address? How would that be best?
That's either way. Definitely post the email. It's omaribooker2@gmail. But if you send a contact through the website, it goes straight to my email. Also, Instagram and Facebook, just Omari Booker. They a message there would work too. But yeah, omaribooker2@gmail. That's probably the quickest. Quickest and easiest. And then the website, you can always kind of keep up with that because I periodically change over all of the work on there. I'm kind of pretty soon I'm gonna be adding some new pieces to my website. So yeah. And that's it. Yeah, omaribooker2@gmail.
I got it. I'm going to put it up here. Give me just 1 second. So, yeah, that's Glenn Biggs trying to do 2 things at one time. So there we go. So there's your 2 ways through omaribooker.com, and also there's Omari's Gmail address, so you can also contact him through that. Mm-hmm. Well, kiddo, I think we've done a great job tonight.
I think we got it figured out. I had pretty good faith in you. So
well, I had no doubt this was going to be a really great show, and we had a lot of great stuff to talk about. And also, when you get back from LA, let's book another one and talk about how that went and what you discovered and all your new pieces of work. Hopefully by then, Omari, we can all start being back together again, where I think things are starting to slowly lean into that direction. And I know we as Community Arts Bellevue are starting to think more about I can open up both cameras so we can look like we're talking to each other.
Yeah.
We're talking more about, this fall, more soft opening stuff, safe distance, outdoor type of things, maybe even a really cool visual art event or art event period with music and stuff. And we're not really quite sure. We're really trying to tiptoe into all this new world ourselves. So, but we are like really thinking forward about what is the rest of 2021 going to look like for us. So it certainly looks a lot better than it did 1 year ago from now.
Absolutely.
And I'm thankful for all of that.
Yeah.
So as we close out tonight, I would like to take just a moment to thank you, Omari, for your time this evening, your time spent on getting prepped for the show and everything else. And I really appreciate you being such an incredible, strong part of the Nashville community and the voice that you bring to it. You're a trailblazer, and you are an incredible, outstanding artist that I think will be the history books will look back, and you'll be in all of them, no doubt.
Well, I so appreciate that, and thank you for creating the platform and having me, and Lee, of course, for that great work behind the scenes, and everybody that kind of tuned in and watched. I think taking an hour out of your day is no small feat these days. So you're lucky you can get 7 seconds out of somebody. So I'm grateful for anybody that took the time to listen and pay attention.
So my real dream is on our next show, it's going to be you, Samuel, and James.
Whew, hey, I'd be very humbled. I would be very humbled.
There'd be a lot of energy coming through the Zoom call for that one.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. I also want to thank my production team for Community Arts of the Bellevue. I want to thank Kathleen O'Brien, Robbie Coles, Janet McMahon, David Huntsinger, Elaine Aldis, Matt Brown, and Lee Jones. It takes a village to pull this thing together. And I appreciate all of you and all the work that you bring, the talent you bring to making Live from the View happen. Again, every Thursday night, 7:00 p.m., right here. Of course, you can always view our shows. This will be up on our Facebook page and our YouTube page forever. So you can always go back and see it again, or share the link with friends and make sure that they have the opportunity to know about this and to see it as well. That's all I have, friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Absolutely. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. Have a great rest of your evening. Thank you all for joining us. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks.